So this is just a video going over a little bit of Group A's homework, just to get you off to a good start so you can sort of check what you're doing as you go along. And that homework sheet is over adding and subtracting fractions without signs, so this sheet right here. So adding, subtracting mixed numbers. And the first thing we're going to do is write all the problems vertically. All right, write all the problems vertically. So if we're doing number one, and you didn't have to do number one, I'm just showing you first as an example that you didn't have to do so that you could just watch, and if you want to copy it, you can. So we're going to write it vertically. And that, like I said yesterday, that differentiates so that you can tell that you're not multiplying, dividing, you're using different set of rules. So you're writing it vertically so that you can see the difference. Once we've done that, once we've written it vertically, we're going to find the least common denominator, LCD. So the smallest thing that 5 and 4 both go into is 20. So that's our least common denominator, 20. Once we've done that, we need to write equivalent. Sorry, these markers are difficult to write with. Write equivalent fractions. What that basically means is we can't just copy over the numerators, we have to keep them equivalent by saying, well, what times 4 make 20? Well, 4 times 5. And to keep it equivalent, we also have to go by 5 on the top. 3 times 5 is 15. We'll do the same thing here. 5 times 4 makes 20. So we do the same thing on top, we get 4. And then we'll write our whole numbers over, 2 and 1. Then we add the numerators. So in this fraction, we'll do 4 plus 15 is 19. Just put it here. And the denominator never change. If you're adding 4 20ths of something plus 15 20ths, you end up with 19 20ths. And then 2 plus 1 is 3. So add the numerators and whole numbers out front. And that would be the steps. And then if you need to, always simplify. So that is number 1. Let's do one of the ones that you had to do. So we're going to do number, let's do number 10. Number 10 here. So we're going to write it vertically. And I'm not going to go back and forth between the notes that I just took and I'm not going to go back and forth between these and this because you can always rewind the video and some people won't need to see it, so I'd rather just let you rewind so you don't watch stuff you don't need to. Then the next step would be to find the LCD, or the least common denominator. The smallest thing 4 and 2 both go into is 4. When the denominator doesn't change, the numerator stays the same as well, so we're just going to put that as a 1. 2 times 2 makes 4. We're going to write the equivalent fraction by multiplying by 2 on top. 1 times 2 is 2. Copy our whole numbers over. 2 fourths plus 1 fourth is 3 fourths. 5 plus 5 is 10. So 10 and 3 fourths, which doesn't simplify, so we're done. All right, awesome. Let's do a subtraction example. We'll do one that you have to do and don't have to do first, and then one that you have to do second. Let's do this one first, just because it's actually pretty easy. If you have some reason people with fractions, they hit this roadblock and can't do this, even though you actually know how to do it and it's not that difficult. If you just had 5 minus 5, you guys would know it's 0. Well, this is the same thing. 3.5 minus 3.5. If you have 3.5 of something and you take 3.5 of it away, you're left with 0. So anytime you're subtracting a number from itself or adding a negative to itself, you're going to end up with 0. All right, now let's do one you had to do. All right. So 3 and 1/4 minus 2 and 3/8. So, subtraction is the same thing. You're going to find the least common denominator, just like before, write equivalent fraction, all that's the same. In this case, the least common denominator is 8. Now let's write our equivalent fractions. Well, 8 times 1, so 3 times 1. 4 times 2 makes 8, so we're going to multiply 1 times 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3. And we'll copy our whole numbers. So hopefully now I'm going to draw a line just so you can sort of see where our new fractions are. Hopefully now you see that you actually can't subtract 2 minus 3. If you notice, I don't remember if there was one on the homework like this or not, but it's one of these that give people a hard time. So let's go over it one more time just in case. And a big mistake people make is they'll just flip it and they'll say, well, I'll just do 3 minus 2. You can't do that. Not unless this is bigger, and then you'd have to readjust. We'll work on that later. You can't do 3, you have to do 2 minus 3 because 3 and 2/8 is the bigger number. It's bigger than 2 and 3/8 because of the whole numbers. So like I said yesterday, there are 2 ways to do it. One way is just to borrow 1 from the 3. If you want to see that way, ask me when you get to class. Write that down, say, Mr. Bingham, show me the next way to do that, and I'll show you, because some people I think that's easier. But for some reason, in my experience, the way that I've always learned as being harder is actually easier for most students. So I'm going to show you the second way just because I think that's the way that's going to hit most of you. And anyone who wants to see the other way, just come to me, talk to me in class, and we'll go over it. The one way to do it is to just make your fractions improper. So on this sheet, if we're talking about subtracting, obviously that would change to subtract. But right here, sometimes, not always, if you can't subtract, you could make them improper right here. The other way to do it is to regroup your fraction. We'll talk about that if you need to. But let's just make them improper by multiplying and adding. You start at the bottom, multiply and add. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 2 makes 26 eighths. Same thing here. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 3 is 19 eighths. And then we'll just subtract 26 minus 19 is 7, and then the denominator stays the same. It would be 7 eighths. So those are the problems we're going to do today. Just in case you want to see them again, you want to pause the video here as you work on the rest of them. These are the steps. Obviously, this step would only be done if you have to because you're subtracting. Everything else would be the steps of addition or subtraction. And once again, you don't always do this in subtraction, only if you have to. Only if you have to. So write down any questions you have. Otherwise, work on this sheet. We'll look at it tomorrow, and I'll answer any questions you come to class with.